sleep. All right, good morning, everyone. Good to see some people here. Good morning, Raphael. Um, so there's no reason to wait for people to tune in. If you have any specific questions, please let me know. If you don't have any specific questions, we can kind of just go over some practice problems, maybe one of each, from the practice thing that I gave yesterday, and then maybe from there, that'll be it. So, are there any specific questions with the three people that are tuning in right now? Do you have any specific questions that you have? Please type them in the chat, the YouTube chat, please, or just quickly send an email now, and I can check my email. So you guys can decide how you want to communicate your questions to me. If there are no questions, I'll just go over one question of each. And yeah, that'll be it. If you missed yesterday's lesson, just go back to, you can go to the other video. So if you go to Google Classroom, in the classwork, at the very top, there should be, it says like click here for YouTube playlist. If you click that, there's a link that takes you to my playlist with videos for the course. So you can just click the date that you want, and then you can just watch that one. Yeah. So don't worry if you missed it. You can always go back and just watch it whenever you want. So even now, you can go back and just watch it, or you can just wait, work with me here, and then go back and watch it on your own time after. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. It looks like no one really has any questions, so let's just get started with some practice problems from yesterday. So yesterday, with the worksheet that I gave, the second sheet online from yesterday looks something like this. And it was a good review sheet. I did upload some new review sheets as well, but this one already had a couple questions. So let's kind of go through some of them. Okay, let's kind of go through some of them. So it says here, solve each linear system by substitution, elimination, and then you can pick which method to use, and then maybe we'll go over one of the word problems. So we'll go over one of each, and then we'll go over a word problem, and then we'll call it there for today if no one has any specific questions. Okay, so if you don't have this printed out, just copy the one I'm going to tell you. Let's do this one. Let's do this one because this one's a harder one, right? Let's do these two, and then we'll continue from there. So copy those two on a separate sheet, and then we'll continue from there. Okay. Oops, that did not freeze. There we go. So copy those two, and then we will get started. Okay. All right. So now we have here our question. So this was the first question. It was asked for you to do and solve this using substitution. Okay, so if we're using substitution, the main thing you're looking for is to isolate for a variable, and to isolate you're looking for a coefficient of 1. And now there's a couple options we have here. We have a coefficient of 1 on the x, we have a coefficient of 1 on the y, and we have a coefficient of 1 on the y in the second equation, right? So if you call this equation 1 and equation 2, we have many choices we can make. So let's just decide. It doesn't matter which one we do. I would go for equation 1 because that looks much simpler. Let's isolate for x. How about we do that? Let's isolate for x. So we're going to take our y and we're going to move it to the other side. So we're going to take the plus y, we're going to move it to the other side. That's going to get us isolating for our x variable. So that's going to give me x is equal to 3 minus y. And there is our third equation, right? We're isolating for x. And so now our next step was to sub this into the other equation that we have not touched yet. Okay, so we have not touched equation 2, so we're going to sub equation 3 into equation 2. Okay, so when we sub it in, we're going to write down -2. It should be an x, but instead of x, we're going to plug in 3 minus y in brackets. And then plus y equals -3. And then we're going to expand that bracket. -2 times 3 is -6. -2 times -y is +2y. And then we have a plus y equals -3. Then we continue working. -6 plus 2y plus y, so -6 plus 3y equals -3, and we continue solving it from there. So now when we continue solving it, we're going to solve using algebra, which means bedmass goes backwards. So we move the -6 to the other side. We're going to get 3y is equal to -3 plus 6. So you have 3y equals -3 plus 6. That's going to give me 3y equals 3. Okay, so 3y equals 3. To get rid of our 3 on the y, it's multiplying, so we know we should divide on both sides. And so we get y equals 1. So there's our first part of our answer. Okay. There's the first part of our answer. So let's take that and let's bring it up to the top over here. Okay. So we have y equals 1 sub into, and we're going to sub that into equation 1. Okay. We're going to sub it into equation 1. So equation 1's right here. X plus y equals 3. We're going to replace the y with 1. And that's a pretty simple equation to solve for. We're going to move the plus 1 to the other side, and that will finish off our question and get x equals 2. So we say in the end, if I don't ask you to check your work, you don't have to check your work. We're going to write POI is 2, 1. And there it is. So let me zoom out and make sure you can see the whole page here. There it is. So there's the full solution on the screen. Okay. So this is our substitution, right? Once again, you can use all these notes. You can go back to my videos when you do your test assignment starting tomorrow. So just make sure, right? You understand how to do it though. Just because you know it's it's one question this way, you might mess up another way if you don't try it enough, right? So make sure you get that practice to complete the assignment to your fullest. Okay. All right. Let's continue onward with this. So if you have to finish copying, just come back and pause the video later. Okay, so let's continue onwards with this. So the second question was this one here. 3x plus 2y equals 18, x minus y equals 1. And this one here asked you to solve it using elimination. Now, if I'm forcing you to do elimination here, it becomes an issue. Most of you would have went for substitution, mainly because the coefficients are 1. But now I'm forcing you. I'm like, hey, you can't do substitution. You must do elimination. If I'm forcing you to do elimination, remember, if these don't match, right, we have y over y, x over x, equal over equal, number over number. But the coefficients don't match. So if the coefficients don't match, what we can do instead is multiply the equation to make them match. So I'm going to take this second equation, and I'm going to multiply by 3. So if I take the whole equation and I multiply it by 3, this is what happens. So that is going to change. So my first equation I am not changing, so I'm keeping it the same. Okay. My second equation I'm multiplying by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. 1 times 3 is 3. And so you notice how this became this. Okay? I've multiplied everything by 3. Okay? By doing so, I can now say, oh, I'm going to subtract because I've set up my equations to have x the same. No, I'm going to give you a separate practice test tomorrow. That's just more review for you to do. There's a separate, you'll see an assignment that comes up. Okay. So, 3 minus 3 is 0, so that's gone. Positive 2 minus negative 3 equals 5. Why? No problem, Angelo. Glad I can answer your question. 18 minus 3 is 15. And so we get 5y equals 15. Then we know we can get rid of the 5 by dividing. And we can, 15 divided by 5 is 3. And there we have y equals 3. Okay, we have y equals 3. So now we can continue onwards with this question. We're going to take that y equals 3. We're going to sub y equals 3 into one of the equations. This is the simpler one, so I'd pick this one. So I'm going to write x minus 3 is equal to 1. If I move it over, 1 plus 3. So x is equal to 4. And there's our final answer. And so we can just say point of intersection is 4, 3. And there's our full solution there. I gotta try to fit everything onto the page. It's a little hard. You guys get the point there. Okay. There we go. That's as best as it's gonna go. So that was a substitution and elimination. Okay, and this would be a harder elimination question because I'm forcing you to multiply an equation before you do elimination. Okay, so this is your requirement. Now, are there any other questions before we move on to a word problem? Okay, we got to go to a word problem. We got to do a practice word problem, and then we're going to call it for office hours today because there are no questions being asked. All right, so that's done. If you need to look at that solution again, please come back to the video after we have done streaming, as it will be available. Okay, so let's talk about a word problem here. Okay, let's pick let's pick number 5. I think that's a good one. I think that's going to be a very good example of setting up your equation. Like I said, word problems that we did yesterday were easy. I gave you the equations. These word problems are much harder, and mainly because you need to set up the equations first. So for those of you that are here, thank you for coming. I asked you to come if you can because you needed help with word problems. So this is how you set up word problems. Okay, this here is how you set up word problems. So let me fold this here so that we can write underneath. Okay, so we have here Mr. Rudder's store, specialty drinks, sells only coffee and hot chocolate. One day, Mr. Rudder sold a total of 150 drinks. If Mr. Rudder sells coffees for $2 and hot chocolates for $3 and made $3.50 on that day, how many coffees did he sell? How many hot chocolates did he sell? And so they're saying C represents how many coffees and H represents how many hot chocolates. So there's two equations. Every time there's going to be two equations. We need to figure out the first and second equation. So in our first one, it tells us Mr. Rudder sold a total of 150 drinks. And he only sells coffee and hot chocolate, which means our first equation, well, it would be C plus H equals 150. That's what that first or that second sentence tells us. When it tells us that Mr. Rudder sold 150 drinks, it must be the amount of coffee and the amount of hot chocolate. That makes sense. It's not that we know how much coffee and how much hot chocolate, but we know that's what's gonna make the 150 drinks. Coffee and hot chocolate, so C plus H. The second equation is a little more tricky. Mr. Rudder sells coffee for $2 and hot chocolates for $3, and he made a total of $350. So if that's the case here, we're saying coffees are $2 each, which means if this is the number of coffees, not how much the coffees are, then we need to multiply the amount of coffees by 2. So for example, if I sell 10 coffees, I didn't make $10. I would have to multiply the 10 by 2 to get the total amount of money, which is $20. So that's why we do 2 times C. For hot chocolates, it's the same idea, except it's $3. So we're going to do 3H, and that's going to equal the total amount of money we made that day. Okay? And so that would be 350. Okay? So 2C plus 3H equals 350. Okay? 2C plus 3H equals 350. So there are those are the two equations that we need. Okay? So from this, we've gotten our two equations. All it's asking for is how much coffee and how much hot chocolate. So we can get that question out of the way. We don't need this sheet anymore, and we can just start solving this problem. Most people will solve this using substitution because we see a coefficient of 1 on each. So let's rearrange the first one. Let's say this is going to move to the other side so that we can use substitution. Okay, so I'm going to get C is equal to 150 minus H as my third equation. So there we have it. Okay, when we substitute it into 2, so we're going to sub 3 into 2, we're going to get 2 bracket 150 minus H plus 3H equals 350. Okay, so once again, we're replacing the C with the 150 minus H right here. Okay, 2 times 150 is 300. 2 times negative H is negative 2H plus 3H, and that equals 350. Okay, so 300 minus 2H plus 3H equals 350. When we solve that out, we get 300 plus H equals 350. Solving for H, we need to move the 300. And so that's going to get me H is equal to 350 minus 300. And so H is going to be equal to 50. And so there's our equation there. there's our variable. So we solve for h equals 50. When we continue onwards, we're going to sub h equals 50 into equation 1. And equation 1 was very simple. It was c plus h equals 150. So we can easily plug in our h as 50. And we can finish solving this question. And we should get an answer of c equals 100. But are we done yet? No, it's a word problem. The question asked how much hot chocolate and how much coffee did Mr. Rudder sell? So we would say, therefore, Mr. Rudder sold 40 cups of hot chocolate and 100 cups of coffee. Okay? And there's your full answer to this question. A little bit higher. Okay, so there's your full solution to this problem here. Okay? Make sure you understand how to solve these word problems, because you are going to get some. Okay? You are going to get some on your test assignment that starts tomorrow. Okay? So, thank you very much for tuning in. Does anyone have any final questions before I go? I've already answered John's question about when our quiz is. It's a test assignment. Okay. What that tells me, John, is that you're not reviewing the videos that I'm uploading on previous days. Please watch previous videos if you have missed class. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Going once. Going twice. All right. That is it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please come into the live stream tomorrow. It's going to be very short. It's going to be 10 minutes just instructing people on what to do for your test assignment. There's no lesson. There's nothing like that. You have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to complete. 5 days to complete the test assignment. You're going to do it by taking pictures of your solution and uploading it onto Google Classroom where you have your assignment. Okay? So make sure you get that done, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Peace out.